Yeah, and that is absolutely a concern. Um, but the same, it's the same in my mind, same from the restaurant industry to car wash industry. Every city has McDonald's, every city has Hardee's, every city Chick-fil-A. But if you go to any town and ask people who live there, their favorite little restaurant's probably not a national brand. Um, and so the first thing, you're going to say, where should I get lunch? They're going to tell you about this place that they've been going forever or that just opened that's a local experience. And they're going to be able to quantify and tell you what makes that place special. It's the best barbecue, it's the best sandwich, it's the best, atmosphere, whatever it is. And you've got to look at it like that yourself to go, what am I doing differently? If my signs look the same, if my point of sale looks the same, if my tunnel looks the same, if my vacuums look the same, what am I doing to differentiate myself?
Welcome to the Modern Car Wash Podcast. I'm your host, Dan St. Jacques. Today's guest is Nathan Bertsch of Express Carwash. Express Carwash works with owners and operators, helping them establish new car wash sites, working with them from the ground up all the way through the completion of the car wash, even helping on the operational side as well. Nathan's held just about every job imaginable in the car wash industry, brings decades of experience. Today we talked about the process of working with Express Car Wash, what that looks like for owners and operators. Talked about developing new sites, challenges, and pitfalls to avoid for operators, and the changes in the industry and what the future holds. It was a great conversation. Nate has a lot to offer, and it was a really good talk with him. I really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoy it too. So here's today's show. All right. Well, Nathan, welcome to the Modern Car Wash Podcast. Thanks for joining after those technical difficulties. Glad we could have you on.
Yeah, excited to be here. A lot of fun things going on, so I'm excited to jump in.
Yeah, let's dive right into it then. So to get started, I think it probably makes the most sense. Or why don't you just give us a sense of your background in the car wash industry and up to the point that we're at now.
Yeah, so kind of lucked into the car wash industry at a young age. There happened to be a car wash, smaller chain, literally across the street from the neighborhood I grew up in. Started working there when I was only 15, and worked there all the way through high school. Really enjoyed it. It was a smaller company. Got to really get your hands dirty, and learn a lot of the nitty gritties of car wash maintenance and the chemistry, just from real world experience. Then whenever I moved to college and was in the Fort Wayne market where Mike's Car Wash was located, and saw they had signs said, "Hey, we're doing college reimbursement," and thought, "Oh, that's a good opportunity to use some past experience, help pay for college." Started working there in a retail aspect. Did that for a little over a year, and then the opportunity came up to be able to join their construction and fabrication team. And so I got to spend just about 10 years building car wash equipment and installing car wash equipment for Mike's Car Wash. Uh, and at the time, had no idea, just how great that organization was, in terms of operational excellence, you know, just strategic growth. And so it was really getting to see the best of the best in action. Which that became clear. My next step after that was to move into more of an independent type role. Wanted to travel around, see some things, try out a different part of the industry. Went to work with a chemical company, Shore, as a salesperson for them, and quickly found out just how special that knowledge that the organization taught me from Mike's was. And similar, I'm sure, as you've seen with Hoffman, regional players that are operating at a completely different level than the industry as a whole. And so that base set of knowledge allowed me to help work with smaller startup operators. And then found my way into Tommy, actually. Learned a whole different set of skills from Tommy, much more of a marketing based approach to car washing than the more mechanical, approach. and really got to see the opposite side of the coin, that there's more than one way to engage your customer. And getting your customer excited about the brand can happen in a lot of different ways. And anytime you can do that, you're going to be successful. Your customers are going to reward you with repeat business. Um, After a few years with Tommy, I actually met my now business partners, Chris and Scott. And Scott kind of had started Express Car Wash for the same reason that we all got together, which was nobody was really building washes the way that he wanted his washes built. Um, Started as a effort to create retail stores for himself that were designed, built in a way that he was happy with, and a lot of that honestly just came down to quality of life. We would rather do things in a very robust way, make more of an investment up front, and not get that call at 5:30 on a Friday afternoon where, hey, the car wash is down. And the trope that car washes always break on Fridays or Saturdays is kind of true, because that's when we're really putting the real load on them. And so, as an owner operator, your quality of life, in a lot of ways, is dictated by how you maintain your equipment, what equipment choices you make. So we started doing that, and once you have a team of people that can build a car wash to your expectations, the reality is we just don't build enough car washes for ourselves to keep that group busy. And so we started farming out and doing work for other people and building washes for them. And so it's been really gratifying. It's been a lot of fun. We've gotten to make a lot of friends in the industry, kind of all across the country. And we do everything from, we have some customers that we help them through their plan sets, all the way into the operational training, to customers that really just have us come in and install their car wash equipment for them. And either way, it's a relationship business, and the same way that your customers at the wash come back to you because they trust you with one of their bigger assets, car wash owners are going to continue to have you come back, EC come back and do work for them, because they trust that we're going to treat their money the same way we treat our own money.
Right. It's interesting. We talked to a lot of different people throughout this podcast, and a lot of the times you have kind of, there's the breakout of the two types of people we talk about, or not necessarily only the two types, but we talk about the people who are born with soap in their bloods, as we say, the people like the Hoffman family, or like at Benny's, where that's a family business. And then you have people kind of like what you're talking about, where, and it's been mentioned a few times, where you sort of get bit by the car wash bug, and then it just ends up being kind of in you, and kind of like almost like an addiction, like you're just hooked on it, which seems like kind of like what happened with you, where you fell into it at the start, but then just been there doing everything else throughout.
For sure. I love the fact that you get to wear a lot of hats. It's allowed opportunities. I've worked with, my father-in-law is a retired engineer. He's now working with Innovated some, to design some equipment to solve problems that didn't seem like they were being solved in a way we liked. To some days you're a chemist, and some days you're a sales trainer, and some days you're a construction worker. But the reality is, I think a lot of people enjoy consistency of doing the same thing every day, and I'm just not one of those people. I like the fact that, one week I might be helping set up concrete forms, and the next week I'm hiring employees. So.
And clearly, I mean, obviously, having all those different experiences that you had from an owner-operator standpoint is key. How important do you think that is for other operators, too, that may be starting out, or even ones that, are more established, to understand both all the roles within their company itself, and understand the actual inner workings of the wash itself for it to be a success? How important is that?
Yeah, I think it's, if you're gonna invest a lot of your money into a retail business, the one of the things that I saw happen at Mike's a lot was they would take time to talk to their customers, um, because sometimes we answer questions for our customers ourselves, um, from the owner standpoint, and don't always come to the right conclusion. And so they would put people out in the parking lot and talk to their customers and say, what do you like, what do you dislike, um, and the reality is, sometimes we place a huge amount of importance on something that's happening in the tunnel, and our customers don't really value it or see it. I've been shocked. The best example for me was seeing when we made the switch to having mat washers in our vacuum areas. Our customers care more about those mat washers than any other part of the process. Um, so coning that off and saying, hey, it's broken or it's not working or something, in their eyes is almost as bad as shutting the tunnel down. And I wouldn't see it that way if I hadn't, talked to the customers and said, what do you value about your membership with us? And the other piece, my partner comes from a retail background, cell phones, car dealerships, other non-car wash industry, and was looking for an investment avenue that would stay local, wouldn't compete with Walmart, wouldn't compete with Amazon, and didn't have a high head count in terms of total employees. But one of his core values is doing a face-to-face evaluation with every employee every 90 days. Because the same as the customers, you really have to hear from your employees that are there every single day, talking to your customers, see the problems, what's important to them. And then we try and go back to the drawing board and give our customers and our employees what they're asking for to improve the quality of their experience.
And one thing you touched on and talk about, the investment if you're opening in a car wash initially. It's clearly not a situation where it's just to set it and forget it. You make that initial investment and it's good to run. What kind of advice do you give to operators in terms of, maintaining their sites or, constantly evaluating? Like you're talking about adding the mat washers in, kind of like what you just touched on there, speaking to customers. How frequently should operators and owners be evaluating those needs, whether it be equipment or, changes within their locations?
Yeah, I think if you're not doing that every year, you're missing out. The reality of our industry is things change. The membership model has really changed our industry. I think that LPR and app engagement with customers is going to be a big change factor. Again, it lets the customer engage us in the way that they want to. Um, and for a lot of us, that's going to be a big investment to go back and make all those changes. But if you're in the industry and you have a successful marketplace and you don't do those things, you're really inviting somebody to say, "Hey, I'm going to come in and do this in a different way." Um, and so you want to stay ahead of that curve. It's one thing to have somebody come through your wash and go, wow, I think I want to own a car wash. This looks like a great business. But you need to run your business in such a way that they go, but I'm not going to do it here because I don't want to compete with this guy. I want to do it over that somewhere else. And so that's where we always challenge ourselves. I've never went to a trade show or toured somebody else's washes and not came home with something to challenge myself to make our stores better. And in a lot of ways, most of the customers that we've worked with for a while, they're going to lean on us a lot for some of that training and service work in the first couple of years. But once you have one or two locations open, it may feel early, but we're really going to encourage them to become independent and get a technician on their staff. Um, because that person who's on your payroll is going to prioritize your wash's needs better than a contractor ever is, and we know that that's not feasible at your first wash. You've been open 6 months, but that's why it's honestly it's really important to get, if you're going to get into the industry, know that you're going to need to own 2 or 3 sites to be able to justify the cost of owning your own support structure. And I think all the guys in the industry who are strong regional or national players feel that and know that. They know that they need to be self-reliant within their own organization.
So let's just walk through the process then. If I'm an owner looking to set up a site and I come to you, what does that process look like when we start? As we have our land secured and are ready to build. What does that look like when we come to Express?
Yeah, so the hardest piece of this industry, and honestly probably any retail industry, is just the land acquisition and finding the right place to be. And then figuring out the most efficient way to utilize that in terms of how you're going to lay out the site. Are you doing a short tunnel? Are you doing double tunnels? How many vacuums are we doing? Is it going to be a flex serve? Is it going to be a full serve? What options are we going to build. And I oftentimes get asked, well, what's your favorite model? And to me, there is no best or worst model. Your marketplace kind of dictates that model. There's places that a nice in-bay automatic with a couple bays that fits that community's need really well, and that's the highest and best use of that piece of property. And then there's places that you really need a double tunnel with 40 or 50 vacuums to get the return on investment off of that really big corner or whatever. And so it's helping it find the just right size, I guess, for their project. Not going in with an answer already in the chamber, but to go, let's look at your project, let's look at your goals. And so that's going to be that first step. And then engaging with the local architect, civil. We have some people that use our plan sets, and just have the local civil update those. Or a lot of times guys come, they've already got a dream. They know what they want their business to look like. But they need somebody to consult with the architect to make sure that all the MEPs end up in the right spots, and we've got the right size chases, and we bring enough water and electricity into the building. It's a shame to build a car wash and not have enough water to wash cars. Happens more than you'd think. And and then engaging in the bid process is honestly where people really start to, I think, see value in that relationship if they've not done it before. It's rare that all of your subs have built car washes. And so for a lot of them, they don't really know what they're bidding or why they're bidding it. And so a lot of times we'll even take them to one of our projects so that they can see it in real life. Hey, you're an electrician, you've never wired it. Let's go to a car wash. Let's look inside the motor control center. Let's understand what that scope is, and ask the questions before we're breaking ground. And then that's the next piece of the puzzle is we're going to try and do several on-site visits for most of our customers during that construction process. Looking at what's underground before we put concrete on top of it. It's a lot cheaper to fix it at that point. And then, just kind of in some ways pushing the subs to hit goals, and because a lot of times if you've not managed a construction process, it's easy to have the contractor give you answers that maybe sound right or wrong to you, but we've done it enough to go, well, no, that's probably not a reason to put a hold on the project, or that change order probably isn't justified. And so to kind of act as an owner's rep, I guess, through the construction process, and that's about half of our customers that ask us to engage in that manner. The other half have done it enough times. They manage that process themselves, and they either have a good relationship with a GC or have a manager within their own company that's taking care of that. Then where we engage everybody is, once you get the building up, got a roof on it, we're going to come in and obviously we've already designed the equipment package and such before that, but coming in and doing that install, and then engaging who their local manager is going to be, whether it's them because it's their first wash and they're going to be an on-site owner operator, or they've hired somebody, and kind of encouraging them to get those people involved earlier in the process. A manager who has helped erect and work on the equipment that's in their tunnel is going to have a lot better understanding of how to maintain it, how it should work, what sounds right, looks right. And so we're always going to encourage that. The more they can be involved in the process, it also gives the manager a sense of ownership that, hey, this is my wash. I saw it come together. I saw it get put up. The final piece is obviously the commissioning of it, and it's engaging all of those vendors. You're going to have somebody from your point of sale company likely there, and then communicating those frustrating moments between where the electrician maybe thinks they're finished, but we have some low voltage work or controls, and getting that last 5% really done well. One of the more frustrating experiences, I think, for first time owner operators is that last 5% not getting done well. And there's a lot of pressure to get open. And so we get open, and that work then just never happens. And you go back to a site that's 2-3 years old and they've still got gremlins and bugs in the system. because we didn't finish it correctly to begin with. And so really trying to avoid that experience of patching things on a brand new car wash before it even opens. And then we're just going to kind of try and help the new manager set pace from the first week. And so a lot of times could be myself, could be we have several employees that have managed washes for us or been in the industry that are going to come alongside that new manager. And help them understand the importance of, hey, I get it. It's the first day. We're not that busy unless we're running free cars, probably. At the end of the day, the tunnel's probably not that dirty, but we're still going to act with pace as though it's an open and operating car wash so that we don't establish bad habits for the employees from day one. And so those, that's kind of the whole process. And then, we have customers that will engage us to continue to come back and help with the first couple rounds of preventative maintenance through the first year or so, which we're happy to do that. Sometimes we even just do it for them as a paid contract. But again, we're going to really encourage to say we would rather come back and coach you through it so that you understand it and can take over that role long term than to just come and act as the service technicians for them.
So really, I mean, you help shore up a lot of headaches for people throughout this process, especially for first time going in, like you said, talking about bidding out to subs and those sort of things that you don't necessarily think about in the construction process or all the way through. It alleviates a lot of those challenges clearly when you work with somebody who's done this, I mean, multiple times with that amount of experience in the industry.
Yep, agreed. And it definitely can be an overwhelming process if you've not done a project of that scale before.
So I wanted to talk about the growth of EC too. I know, when we talked at NRCC, you were talking about kind of, needing at this point needing more space because you guys are just the way the business is scaled. Really, it's just taking off now, and in order to one cope with the supply chain and extended lead times, you have to have want to have those supplies available and on hand, so you have to make room for that. But two, just the number of projects that you're taking on. What does that growth look like over the last, few years, especially with, the recent boom in the industry too?
Yeah, it's honestly went better. I don't want to say better than we had expected. Um, it's grown to a level that 3 years ago, I guess we didn't even really want it or predict that it would. Um, and a lot of the people that we've worked with have been successful and grown more quickly than we thought. And we've gotten to engage some larger companies as the consolidations have taken place. And so we're happy with the fact that, we're going to do probably 4 times more car washes this year than we did 3 years ago. Um, and it's created a lot of opportunities for people within our organization. By the way, I apologize. My camera keeps slipping down. There you go. It's created a lot of opportunities for people within our organization to now take on leadership roles. Um, it's allowed us to specialize some, purchasing type roles and create a lot more positions than I think we thought we were going to need. Um, but we're also really enjoying watching our customers grow and getting to take on these challenges. And I guess you got to make hay when the sun shines. And so we've said yeah, and we're to the point now where we can do three concurrent projects at the same time. And 3 years ago, we were happy to do 4 car washes in a year. Um, and so I think we're continuing to hire right now, continuing to train, knowing that next year is probably going to be a doubling of this year's business again. And so as long as the interest rates and the consolidations continue, I think there's going to continue to be money coming into the car wash space. And it's kind of interesting. There's definitely other people filling the role that we're filling. But a lot of the bigger companies, they internalized that a long time ago. Hoffman's done that for themselves forever. Mike's has done that for themselves forever. Tommy's done that for themselves and now is doing it for other people. But there's just not that many organizations out there that want to take it from the equipment order to the functioning car wash, and kind of be a concierge, for lack of a better term. And so I think we'll see that growth, and I'm assuming that some of the bigger companies will start to internalize those roles, and we're okay with that. We're happy to ride the wave for the next few years, continue to build some washes for ourselves, and just see where things go.
And your sites, I mean, they're pretty spread out geographically too. Are there any challenges that you find, based on geographic locations or changes that you have to make when you're processing sites in those areas?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is honestly just quality of life for our people. And so we're very transparent when we're hiring install people that, hey, this is a position that's gonna involve traveling a lot. And for the right person, that's a good thing. But for the wrong person, obviously, that's going to cause home life balance issues. Um, Aside from that, I think technology and just planning has made it so that it's easier to operate at a distance than it used to be. You know, FaceTime, Slack, job site cameras are all things that allow somebody to gather information or ask questions in a way that we couldn't 20 years ago. Um, so that helps with that piece, and we basically just operate trailers that are mobile, tool shops, part shops, whatever. We take everything we need to build a car wash with us to the site and leave it there. Um, and then it's just a matter of arming your people with the knowledge of how to do the work.
I know you touched on earlier not having enough water to wash cars. I mean, you've done enough of these. What are some of the challenges that you see operators facing or owners that are maybe coming into it for the first time that aren't predicting these, certain things that may be obvious or may not, that can either slow down the building process or put them kind of behind the eight ball?
Yeah, I think, it's there is, for somebody who has not done it before, it is almost like a weird car buying process as you're trying to figure out what equipment you're going to use. And so a lot of times there's really a disconnect as you're trying to build out that quote for your building, your equipment, so on and so forth. Um, and so it's tempting a lot of times to try and build a package that fits a certain budget, which we all have budgetary constraints. But sometimes the consequences of those choices don't really land home until you're midway through the construction process, and for example, the pain of piecemealing out and having 6 different vendors that are supplying support equipment and backroom equipment and this and this and this and this. The coordinating of that can become a nightmare, honestly. And I see that a lot where, due to civil demands or some type of local requirements, the stock application of that equipment or how it's going to be installed or wired or plumbed doesn't work, and getting that pivot, that right answer to the contractor or to the architect, um, can take weeks, back and forth and back and forth. And, well, we do it this way. Well, that's not allowed here. Well, why is it not? And so it can create a lot of delays in the process. And then honestly, a subpar outcome where, the equipment, the chemistry, the building really weren't designed to work together per se. Um, and then you kind of end up with some back finger pointing to go, well, our system's fine. It must be the other guy's system. And so there's kind of a lack of accountability, um, to go, yeah, no, we need to make sure all this comes together. And so that, I guess that would be my advice to a first timer in the industry: work with somebody who has worked with all the components and pieces that you're putting in there. So you have a higher level of certainty that, hey, these all these ingredients can go together and make something that tastes pretty good.
Now, so once the wash is set up, then you also are facing kind of the challenge now. Clearly, when we talked about the boom in the industry and all the consolidation, you have PE coming in. Really, just the sheer number of washes that's going in. How do what do you tell your operators, or how do you tell these owners what are ways that they can keep themselves top of mind for their customers, and not end up, because John's car wash all of a sudden, big super duper car wash comes down the street, obviously it can't just be a pricing situation where it's a race to the bottom. So how do you stay relevant with your customers? How do you ensure that the quality that you're putting out is going to match that level?
Yeah, and that is absolutely a concern. But the same, it's the same in my mind, same from the restaurant industry to car wash industry. Every city has McDonald's, every city has Hardee's, every city Chick-fil-A. But if you go to any town and ask people who live there, their favorite little restaurant's probably not a national brand. Um, and so the first thing, you're going to say, where should I get lunch? They're going to tell you about this place that they've been going forever or that just opened that's a local experience. And they're going to be able to quantify and tell you what makes that place special. It's the best barbecue, it's the best sandwich, it's the best, atmosphere, whatever it is. And you've got to look at it like that yourself to go, what am I doing differently? If my signs look the same, if my point of sale looks the same, if my tunnel looks the same, if my vacuums look the same, what am I doing to differentiate myself? And that can be the soft things like community engagement. Somebody who's from that community is always going to be able to engage the community better than a national brand's going to. And you have to, because they're going to have bigger advertising budgets and be able to do things in a bigger way. But you can do things in a more efficient, tangible way, working with a local school, fundraisers, those type of things. Um, Car washing really is a very local choice, which is what makes it attractive to a lot of people. You're not competing with Amazon. You know, Amazon can't ship a car wash to your house. And so if you're closer to that person's daily travel and you're not getting their business, you've got to look in the mirror and ask why. Why would they go out of their way to go to somebody who's further away from them than you are? And you just got to get creative. And in a lot of cases, it's just a matter of having a better discipline and better customer service. The smallest things matter more than you think. One of the concepts that my partner taught me was he treats each of his vacuum stalls like it's a hotel room. And if you went to check into a hotel room and you opened the door and the bed wasn't made, you're probably not coming back. And the thing that I see all the time that makes me laugh is, I'll be doing like every car wash operator does, sitting across the street watching the new competitor or whatever. And you see people, they pull into the vacuum stall, and what's the first thing every person does? They take out the thing. Is it sucking? Is it sucking? They're looking in the end of it. They're trying to beat it out in the trash can. That's a bad experience, and it's something that you can teach your employees to take pride in and do, that guarantees the customer is getting that experience that they expected. They wanted that clean vacuum stall. Nobody wants a nasty vacuum nozzle, especially in the world of COVID. So how often are your employees revisiting the vacuums and freshening up that experience to make sure that somebody's not coming into a vacuum air that's trashed or has clogged or dirty nozzles or whatever, which is such a simple thing. But I can tell you that the 35-year-old mother that's stopping in after dropping the kids off at school to vacuum the fries out of the car or whatever, she notices that. And so if she comes in a couple times and gets sticky hands from your vacuum nozzles, she's probably going to give your competitor a try. And if he creates a better experience there, she probably doesn't care if you're a national brand or local brand. That's who she's probably going to then visit. And so it's little things like that I think a local operator who has personal relationships with their employees is always going to have an easier time consistently delivering on those small differences. And I think if you're a local person, you need to focus on that and make that a core piece of your marketing. And a lot of that comes down to explaining to your employees, like we just discussed, why do we do this? We do this for this, and this reason. Employees love to understand. They love to be excited about the product. And so, whether it's an extra service or whatever you're doing, your employees understanding it and being excited about the product is a big key. You want the person that's selling that extra service to get it on their car and be able to say, I get this on my car and I love it. That person's always going to sell more of that product than somebody who doesn't believe in the product themselves.
And so a lot of that really, I mean, it's focusing on, I guess, you can almost look at it as the micro instead of looking at, the macro of, okay, I just need to outspend my competitor, which in a lot of cases, like you're saying, if it's a big national brand, it's just not going to be an option for you, and don't spend the time looking over your shoulder at what are they doing, really evaluate what are you doing internally, like you're saying, and, kind of like you just touched on there, culture is a big piece of that too. Are you living, breathing everything that you talk about as a business, and what do you represent, and how does that funnel down through your employees? Because at the end of the day, that's going to be what creates a consistent experience for your customers as well. That's where you want them to come back. That's the way you're going to have to do it.
Yep. And we were touring a medium-sized operator. He's came from the oil lube business, car service first, and now is getting into car washes in a pretty big way. And the biggest takeaway people have had when they tour his sites were just how grand his landscaping was, and when they kind of asked him about it, the number he said that he spent per year per site was kind of eye popping, right? And one of the gentlemen asked, he said, do you think you get that money back? What's your return on investment on that? And he said, I don't, it's not going to be a hard number, but he said, what that does is it shows my employees that I take pride in my business. And so when they show up, they have an attractive place. He goes, if I'm going to ask them to pick up cigarette butts or trash out of the landscaping, but I'm not willing to pay to have the mulch freshened up or annual flowers put in, he goes, your employees are never going to take more pride in your business than you do. And so he goes, that's a tangible way that I can show all of my employees every year, I take pride in this site. I'm going to spend the money. I'm going to have the landscaping company come in. And that was one of the things that definitely struck me with Hoffman. I mean, they have, I think they actually own a greenhouse, right? To be able to fresh. Um, and it's amazing to see a 25-year-old car wash with fresh landscaping still looks great. It's a bigger piece than people realize from the street appeal. And it also makes you a good neighbor. It lets the other businesses around you know that you care about being in the neighborhood.
And that was one thing, actually, John Michael Ferry from Bluebird that we had on last episode was talking about that too, and talking about it's also one of those things that you might not consider, but when you go to a planning board for a future site location, you have people, in those areas that are saying, oh, I don't want a car wash because they have this image in their mind of what a car wash looks like. If you tell them, well, go look at this site, if that's a beautiful, well-maintained site, like you're saying, if you're clearly a good neighbor, it's going to be a lot easier to please those people and have them sign off on, okay, yeah, let these people come on into our neighborhood because clearly they're doing something right.
Yep. Yep. And that is, and that takes us all the way back to the development piece of it. Yeah, you want to have that good reputation because a lot of times the people who are controlling which sites you have access to in the development, they're going to go look at what else you've done. And if you're making the retailers around your other sites suffer and not being a good neighbor, they're not going to give you access to that good corner site. Because we're car washing, love it or hate it, we're a hard sell to be a big anchor spot in a development. They're always going to want to give you the B site, back in the corner and stick to Texas Roadhouse or something that historically has been a bigger draw. Very few developers see us at car washes as a core component to their development strategy. And so the sooner you can change that, the better access you're going to have to better real estate long term.
I wanted to go back to something you talked about earlier, talking about the type of washes for different sites. That makes sense. I know obviously the industry has shifted really to the express exterior model, with the rise of unlimited packages, those sort of things have really made that change. Do you see something like a flex serve or full service still being something that's going to be viable 5 years down the road? There's clearly a need for it, but when you look at challenges with labor and staffing, and it just seems like everything's shifting to something that requires less labor, which obviously is not going to be the case for a flex or a full serve type location.
Yeah, and I've seen, I have not personally managed a site that had that type of operation. We do, however, do work for, and I'm good friends with several people who live in that world. Um, you know, if you're in a marketplace that doesn't have that as an offering, you're definitely, it's a service that some people want, and so you're definitely leaving an open door to somebody could come in and provide that. Um, I think the in my backyard, Charlie's does it very well in that they make it easy to buy from them either way. You can come through and get that express experience, and then maybe every fourth or fifth time you're going to take advantage of that flex serve. I think that's a great way to look at it, and the people who've done that well have been very successful. The other piece that I'm starting to see peak out, and I think long term, and I say this as I think Mister's pivoting away from the full serve quite a bit, so foot and mouth, I guess. But a hub and spoke approach where you're going to create that bigger property with the option of the flex serve. You're maybe even looking at a world where you're putting a double tunnel in, people mover belts, a big build, we're talking 12, $15 million investment. And then you're going to put 3, 4, 5 smaller express sites, 2, 3 miles from that, 4 or 5 miles, depending on your population density, around that, and really create a full offering for people that, hey, I've got the express car wash that's 2 minutes from my house. I want that membership. But knowing that bigger property exists and the full line of services are available. I don't have enough data to really know how well that works. I feel like we'll see that emerge over the next couple of years, and we'll all see if it really makes sense or not. I suspect in a lot of ways it's like a gym membership. You probably, as a consumer, overvalue that, hey, this gym has one site that's close to my house, but this other one's got 300 sites nationally. Your brain tells you I want to be a member at that one that's got the 300, but I know that data tells you that 95% or something of that gym members never work out at another gym close to their house. And so there may be more of a perceived value than a real value there. But I think average consumer sees that option as part of their membership, that, hey, when I'm at the Costco that's closer to the big site, every couple months, maybe I am going to spend the extra $20 on top of my membership to get that flex serve experience. Um, I think there's a perceived value there. I just don't know if it's real, and I don't know what kind of dividends it pays.
Right. So really, as sort of not as as a primary site, I guess it's a little bit more challenging than, like you're saying, if you have it as sort of an option for people, locally to go to, just as a, like you're saying, kind of get that perceived value that their membership really also is going to give them that option, whether or not they choose to use it.
Yeah, and the other piece of that, again, it does come down to the real estate. There's a reason that the larger cities with the higher cost of real estate tend to still have a lot more of a flex full serve market. When you're spending 3, 5, 6 million dollars on a piece of real estate, it's hard to make that express car wash pay that bill. And so adding that flex serve is oftentimes going to double, triple, quadruple the grosses that you're going to take on that side. It's a lower margin business, um, but you're trying to make that dirt work for you in as many ways as possible, to justify that investment. And so again, the real estate is going to kind of dictate that probably never goes away in the higher end markets. Um, because the other piece of that as well is that the flex serve is more of a destination wash. Um, it's, we always want to be the first turn as an express car wash. I want to be touching the grocery store's parking lot or right at the corner to make it as convenient as possible. Um, when you're in the higher population density markets, a lot of times you're just not going to be able to get that site, and so you're going to build on the secondary B site. And so you're going to want to put that other offering in there to get people to make that extra turn to come see you.
So let's circle back a little bit. I know you touched on kind of what next year looks like for you guys at Express. So what to be a little bit, we'll go back to that again. What is 2022 looking like? What do you see for 2023 for the number of washes you guys are putting in, projects that you have in place?
Yeah, so super weird. I never thought I'd live in a world where our ability to succeed is based upon my vendor's ability to sell me product. And I think that's the biggest challenge we're dealing with, and pivoting, adding warehouse space, adding additional inventory, getting away from the drop shipping to projects, because there's more business available right now than we could ever consume. I think we end the year 2022 with a lot of car wash projects that wanted to happen that didn't happen, just as an industry. That if we had the trained people and could get the materials readily, there's probably 20% more business out there than any of us are going to be able to consume next year, which is odd. 10 years ago, it was hard to, you'd fight all year to just get 2 or 3 build projects. And now it's a big spigot that's wide open. And we're just struggling every day to keep our supply chains in line and not have to, and that's where the operating at a great distance does become hard for us. If you're building an hour from your shop, it's not that hard to swing by and grab those parts as they trickle in. Obviously, return trips that are halfway across the country for our install team to swing back by and finish it up is pretty painful in our shoes. And so we're doing our best to overcome those challenges.
And for the rest of the year, can we find you at ICA this year? Some of your team going to be out in Las Vegas?
Oh, for sure. Yep. And going to the Chiefs game, so get to see the new stadium. Hopefully Mahomes beats the Raiders. So.
Might as well make the most of the trip for sure. Yeah, that'll be a good one. All right, Nathan. Well, I think that's all about I have for you today, but I really appreciate the time and the conversation, and thanks a lot for joining.
I appreciate the opportunity. So look forward to everybody in Vegas.
All right. Thanks. Well, that's it for today's show. Thanks again to my guest, Nathan Bertsch, for joining today. As always, you can find us at innovatedcarwash.com and find the Modern Car Wash Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.